Today's guest is a part of, for my money, the best band that rolls through Minot. Joining me now, it's Jay Juliano. You see him all the time when Slamabama is in Minot or anywhere in the upper Midwest, I'm sure, for this audience. Jay, was really appreciative for you to hop on this podcast with me here because I've been to a ton of your shows. You guys are awesome. But right at the very beginning, how did Slamabama sort of come together for all of you?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks, Ben, for having me on. I appreciate it. I love to talk about the band, so we'll have a great conversation. We started back 2007 to 2008. It was kind of my second time out as a musician. I had played fraternities and sororities and college parties for years, like in my 20s, and then kind of got out of it for a little while, and I was like, I want to do it again. So I started kind of looking for players. I was living in Illinois at the time, Chicago, and put out an ad to try to find a female singer. Found one in Rosanna, and actually, funny enough, I had 2 full days of auditions of female vocalists, and Rosanna was my first audition on the first day, and it was like 8-hour days of auditions, and I kind of already knew who I wanted as soon as she opened her mouth, because her voice is just amazing, and it was fantastic. You know, just the moment was so unbelievable that my first audition was going to end up being the person that I would pick, and then kind of even more unbelievable that we're looking 13 years later and 11 years of marriage. So that was not part of what I had in mind at the time, and that was even a bigger bonus. So then we started looking for other players. We found Dennis, who was living in Illinois, and he's been with us pretty much the whole run. And then about 4 or 5 years later, we changed drummers. We found a drummer in Chicago who we worked with, and we really only changed drummers once officially. We had a friend who was an interim drummer for a short time in between, and we've had Alec now for 6 years. And that's one thing we're kind of proud of with Slamabama is we do run this thing. Excuse me, we do run this thing kind of as a business, and we try to take care of everybody. And so the longevity of keeping players, especially in like a road band, for this many years is kind of an accomplishment. So we're proud of that.
And it's not a knock really on Dennis, but when I see you guys all lined up, he looks like the Mick Mars of the crew, where he's a couple steps up in age, man. What's the dynamic like there?
It's funny because I love the Mick Mars reference, and I actually think Denny would get a kick out of that too, because he's had nicknames along the way from people in different towns that we know that have called him everything. I'm just going to say this, you can edit it if you have to, but everything from Grandpa Balls to all kinds of other stuff along the way. And I think it's one of those things that he rolls with pretty good. There's obviously a really big age difference between Dennis and Alec, but we all get along pretty good. I mean, every band has those kind of like, I don't know what to call it, knockhead kind of moments. And, sometimes that's going to happen because of all kinds of different things, and age could be one of those things on occasion, or just being set in your ways because maybe you've done things a certain way your whole life and you're changing your mind about it. But, I think over the most, for the most part, it's not been a really huge deal. Denny's He's a real fun guy. He loves to play music, and it's his life. So, as long as that dynamic works, it's worked for us, and it's been good.
I didn't get a chance to realize this when I was preparing for this interview, but what was it like in your early days? I guess you were sort of like Otis Day in the Knights playing all those frats.
Yeah, it was very different then. I mean, I was a guy that like immediately decided after high school that I wanted to play music, and I did junior college for a little bit, and I kind of set myself up for if it didn't work, I got skills and I did things there that and actually it's funny, in my very early days as a musician, I would temp on Mondays through Thursdays or Wednesdays, depending on when my band would take off to do shows. And then play on the weekend. And I did that for 2 reasons. A, just to stay busy during the week. And B, I didn't want technology to ever get ahead of me. And I never wanted to, not know how to do things. And that way if the band thing didn't pan out, then it was cool. I actually ended up working at an accounting firm in Chicago for a few years between the frat band and in Slamabama, and it was because I always made sure that I kind of kept my brain working while the music side of it was going. But it was a whole different world then. When I was playing the frats, it was a different dynamic than I had ever seen before in my life and ever seen after. We were at one college down in Georgia one time, and I remember opening. They gave us kind of a green room in one of the frat houses, and my buddy, my bass player at the time, Kevin Smith was his name, and he and I were sitting in a room, kind of talking in that room, and there were drawers in there, and we just kind of, we got curious. We're kids in our early 20s, and we're kind of curious about things, and started opening drawers, and we were seeing photos of hardcore hazing, like stuff that would have like blown your mind, and you can't even imagine that stuff today. And the dynamic was really crazy back then. It was a lot of fun. I will say this: one of the cool things about being in that circuit at the time was when we play like the University of Alabama. Front row in Tuscaloosa is just a massive, massive thing, and it's just kind of unbelievable to see. Rosanna couldn't believe it the first time she saw it. And we might have been playing one house, and Hootie and the Blowfish would be playing the house now, next door to that, and maybe a couple of houses down, Dave Matthews may be playing there. Because all these bands were kind of in that stage where they were kind of out there doing that stuff. Edwin McCain, all these other, these kind of like these mid-'90s bands, that were kind of getting out there and doing their thing. And so that was always kind of a cool thing when you would see some of those bands kind of go mainstream or go national.
So did you guys, since you became Slamabama, a big part of the frat scene, you guys were stuck playing in a bunch of basements. Does that happen often with Slamabama anymore, or you guys moved on from that?
No, yeah, Slamabama never kind of went that route. There were a couple of differences with Slamabama that were really cool. I kind of established myself as a musician in Chicago prior to Slamabama because I did finish my solo and kind of thing when I moved to Chicago. So I had been playing some pretty good big gigs with like bands like Diamond Rio and Sawyer Brown and doing all that kind of stuff and building up a little bit of a reputation. So when I had decided to do Slamabama at that point, fortunately, I already had some pretty good contacts in the Chicago area to not have to play too many basements and kind of go and play some good clubs and kind of get the name going. Slamabama has worked extremely hard, much harder than the frat band ever did, but by the same token, we did have some really fortunate friends and some things that kind of helped us get things going maybe a little quicker, due to reputation and the hard work that kind of preceded that.
You alluded to this a little bit between your time in the frat band and the Slamabama band, but I'm curious, and you could even perhaps hypothesize a little bit for your other band members too. What would you guys be doing if you didn't have music careers? Like, what line of work do you think you would land in?
Myself, I'll just start with me because I know me the best, I guess. I probably would have stayed in Chicago, maybe stayed when I worked at the accounting firm, I was actually working in audiovisual with them and stuff and doing, taking care of like catering and things like that. I ended up being kind of over that department actually at the time a Big Five accounting firm down in Chicago. I probably would have stayed in that. I still like the fact, I still like working in the AV field. I enjoy recording and producing, and then also producing big meetings like that. It was very satisfying for me, even though I wasn't playing music for a few years. It still gave me the feeling that I was producing something. Rosanna, I think if she weren't in Slamabama, I have a feeling she would probably have. She was really kind of looking when she was a little younger. She was wanting to act. I know that. She also has that need for to create. She also has thought about things like, if she ever left the music business of maybe teaching or something like that. Alec for sure would be a teacher. In fact, he's been kind of working on that as well. He's been doing some sub teaching in Fargo, and I think up in Minot too. And then Dennis, I think Dennis is one of those guys who I think if he weren't in Slamabama, he'd be looking for another gig. He would play, even though he's been with them, he's been so loyal and he's been with us forever. If the band stopped, he would want to keep playing. So I think he would play as long as he could in whatever capacity he could.
You guys feature a selection of country, rock, and pop. What makes that the right selection for you guys to play?
Well, it's funny. When I was younger, I did live in Nashville for a little bit in my early days, and I tried to kind of pursue that artist route. And one huge thing then was, if you're going to sing country, don't try to blend it. This is before things kind of like hip hop got infused and urban music got infused into country. But I think why it works now is there's a really, really neat and close kinship between, let's say, 80s or 90s pop and today's country. So we can get on stage, and even some of the current stuff works really well too. I mean, we can get on stage and we can play, like Sam Hunt or something like that, and then, be able to easily turn around and do a Pitbull song right after it. And it works because of that dynamic and that vibe. It's just kind of cool. So I think, I actually don't even use the word rock too much when I talk about Slamabama. I really kind of use country and pop more, because I think there's just a kinship between those two right now. And then if we want to play a rock song here and there, like a Blink-182 song or something like that, it still fits, and I think that there's just an enjoyment now. There's a shameless ability to enjoy music more than to enjoy genres anymore. So it just works for us.
So you guys have a bunch of songs for 3 types of music. They blend sometimes, but they can be pretty distinct, each thing. Country,
yes.
Rock, pop, How much
Sure.
has your repertoire changed since you first started? Did you say from the outset, we have to be this 3-headed monster of a band that can do these different things? Or did you really want to hammer country first and then say, like, hey, I think I can make other different kinds of songs work for the show?
Well, either you have time traveled back 11 years, or you're just a really good, astute person. We did not come out wanting to be that kind of band. We came out wanting to be a country band. And that was something, because Rosanna being from Kentucky, me being from Alabama, we were always like, well, if we sing it, it's going to sound country anyway, so let's just stick to what we do best. And at the time, too, I think we still had that little bit of a drive to want to be maybe that band that could break out and go national or be on the radio, which, I don't think that ever dies in someone, but then there's also the realistic belief that, as you get older, it really always seems like the prospects get younger. So, I mean, you got people in their teens now signing deals. I mean, we're so far removed from that, we don't concern ourselves with it. So it's like, I think we can turn ourselves, completely over to live shows at this point and not worry about things. But when we started, it was all about, we're country. It is what it is. And we were playing nothing but country at the very beginning. And then we just started realizing the fact that, because we all love so many different kinds of music, and I don't spend my day for sure, just playing country playlists. I mean, I love a lot of different kind of music. So I think it gives us much more fulfillment now to be able to go, oh, do we want to do that song? Yeah, we want to do that song. People love that song. And that's another thing that's very, very important with a band is never, ever get on stage, especially if you're going to be a road band or a cover band or a party band the way we are. Don't ever get on stage and play for yourself. Always play for the people in front of you. I may not like that Lizzo song, but these people may love that Lizzo song, and so it's just going to make, the night better. And then I end up loving the song because, again, I don't look at it from a genre point of view. I look at it, I love songs that people love to hear us sing, so that's a huge deal.
Does your experience as a band in that regard does it surprise you less when you see other performers kind of changing things up? I think somebody that aligns with maybe you guys' progression is like, Taylor Swift was like hard country, and
sure.
Nowadays she's real poppy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're someone like Taylor, too, there's a whole different aspect involved that. And I think there's a couple of things. I think when you've reached the top of the mountain like Taylor did, especially so young in her career, I think that there becomes a point where you're looking for something to also stimulate you. And I think it gets to the point, you hear about really rich and wealthy people that are all, whatever part of their life. They're looking for that one thing that like still gets them going or still stimulates them. And I think with Taylor, she got so big that she transcended out of country so clearly that she thought, well, I can do something now and on a much larger level that we ever dreamed to do. And, I can do something now that can really satisfy me as an artist. And I think that's kind of where she went. And I think a lot of people, you think about artists that really do big crossover or big reinventions of themselves, be it Taylor or Garth or somebody like that. They usually reach the pinnacle of what they can do in that genre, and then they start looking at other things.
All right, so when we reel it back to what you guys like to do when you're preparing for a show, how long does it take for you to learn a song well enough for you to use it in a live setting?
We don't. Slamabama does not rehearse, which is really kind of funny. But I think it's only because we've been together for so long. And, the member that's been with us for the shortest amount of time has been with us over 6 years. So we generally will rehearse at home individually. Rosanna and I will work on vocals and such to whatever song we're adding. We'll work on our harmonies and stuff like that. And then I'll build the tracks or whatever it is, because we're a band that does use tracks, but, we don't carry a piano player, fiddle player, and an orchestra with us, so we do track in some things that we don't play. So I'll build that, and then generally what we do, and you can ask Adam and Ben at the O about this. We will probably roll in the day of a setup and sound check, and we will play the song together once or twice during sound check, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then it's pretty much go at that point.
Yeah, because even if a band is a real heavy tour, I'm sure it's just like they check the sound and they're pretty much back on. It's kind of like baseball players; they play every day, and there's not really practice. It's just the warm up and you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's, for us, we have the capacity. We have a great agency that has a great place for us to go in and rehearse if we need to. And if we're putting together like a showcase somewhere and we need to do like a 5-song little medley set or something like that, we do get together and we work that stuff out. But like on general ads for shows, if we're adding a new song, we pretty much just all do it at home and then meet together on the stage for sound check and run through the song. And generally it takes one time, maybe a couple of times if it's something, we just want to tighten something up.
From coming out and seeing you guys, I think you might have a passionate take on this. How important is it for bands to have that great live show compared to just, you buy their CD and you're listening to how good the band sounds like?
At our level, it is the most important thing. And I say that I always like to say at our level because, we're a road band, party band, so like people are not going to have a good time if we're not having a good time. So I think that's very important. Now, if you're George Strait, show is probably the least people are there to see or whatever the case is because your voice is just so iconic. I remember I saw Garth Brooks and George Strait not long from each other when I was younger. And as a young kid, when I first saw George, I was like, wow, that was really not what I expected because I think I was so tuned into those like really high energy acts. But I didn't leave upset because I was like, man, I just got to hear George Strait for 2 hours. That was amazing, and he sounds fantastic, just like on the album. But when you're dealing with our level, it's a whole different ballgame. People don't come to clubs to sit down and listen to us sing, So we got to make sure the show is live. It's good live. There's a lot of energy. Rosanna's an energy machine too. She's fantastic. And we first got together. I was the guy in the middle, and she was off to the side. And I changed that quickly because I was like, you belong here. You command this stage. Your voice and the way you do a show is fantastic. So, and we're also going back to that other question you asked too. One thing that we always make sure too is not only that the show is good, but it's not exactly the same every time you see us. So we add a lot of stuff. I keep my eye on the iTunes charts a lot, and we try to add and stay as fresh as we can. Especially in the last few years, we've realized the value of that.
So, yeah, I was going to say, like, that Lizzo song, for example, that you just clearly fell in love with, that comes on the top of the chart, comes on the radio in earnest. How long until it's in your set list? And when you go to a place, how do you kind of decide on the songs that you're going to play? Do you have, like, a rough order? Are you able to ride the wave and just quick communicate, next up we'll do this in the moment? How does that work?
Yeah, we use in-ear monitors. We use the in-ears. So, we have a talkback mic on the stage. You'll sometimes see me turn around, or Rosanna turn around, and we'll walk back to this little random mic that's sitting back by the drums. And that's how we communicate with each other, is because that mic is only fed to our in-ears. So nobody hears that but us. So we can make calls, on the fly if it looks like things maybe things need to get a little more pop heavy or rock heavy at that moment, or whatever the case is, or we want to change the order. We can do that for sure. But it's you just kind of feel it. We have been, I think, again, just because of repetition and learning crowds, we've gotten to where we can set up set lists and go. When we first started out, we would literally just keep our general set list up on the stage and just kind of pick and choose what songs worked. But now that the show's a little more tightly produced and we do more things with lights and we do things with video and all that kind of stuff, we do like to try to stick to, whatever set list is made that night. And of course, it changes between different kinds of events too.
So when you look out at the crowd, do you kind of feed off more of how wild people get if they're dancing around compared to one genre or the other? Or do you just walk out and see, like, boy, there's a lot of people wearing flannel shirts tonight. We might want to play them.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely know. Like, there may be a difference between playing a county fair in Wyoming and, playing a show in, the cities, or something like that. So, I mean, we definitely will build those shows differently. And we also noticed, too, Rosanna, I got to give her credit for this, because when I was coming up in the frats and stuff, it was just like, we don't talk a lot. We go between songs, and she has been the one to go, hey, every few songs we need to stay connected and say a little something, even if it's every 4 or 5 songs. And also, she's really good about helping me pace the show, because, again, if it were up to me, sometimes it would be just like, lightning, and never a chance to pause and slow down. And she's been the kind of person that's like, let's not forget, the crowd tires out too if they're getting really, really into it, and they may need a breather. They may want to hear Shallow or something like that. Kind of give them a breath and kind of just sing along instead of jumping up and down. So,
okay,
yeah.
You guys, you'll play in a lot of different environments. What's kind of unique about playing, a private event, company, or like a wedding versus like the more open festivals, bars, and public shows?
Sure. Weddings we have been playing a ton of, and that's been great. We started off. We first said no weddings. We're not going to do weddings, and it's really weird. And I had personal reasons for that. Just from actually weddings where I come from down south are really not like the weddings up here. The weddings up here are more like little mini festivals and barn parties and stuff, and they're so fun. And I had only played weddings where I came from, and it was just a different feeling, and I didn't want to be the wedding singer, so I was like, yeah, we're not going to do weddings. And then we ended up doing a couple and just fell in love with them up here. And when we play weddings, we have a really kind of the difference between a Slamabama show at your club or like a festival would be that show's going to come right out of the box, like, trying to get the energy going. We learned a long time ago there should not be any throwaway songs, because we used to come out on stage and go, well, if we're going to do this song, let's do it in the first or second set before people get drunk or people want to party. And that's changed over the years to like, we can drive them to want to do that. We may burn a few early, before things get like crazy, but it's worth burning those songs to get people in a better mood and get them going early. Now, weddings, on the other hand, and I always tell like brides, when I'm talking to brides before their wedding, don't freak out if you're used to seeing Slamabama shows. The first 30 minutes or so, 30, 40 minutes, we may play Take It to the Limit by the Eagles, or we may play some song, because don't forget, it's still date night for your uncles and your aunts and your grandparents, and, they may not have gone out in months or years, and they're here for your wedding. They want to have a dance, too. They want to have a good time in the first hour or so, 45 minutes. So the first set at a wedding is still fun, and, but there's a little bit more respect put to maybe the older crowd that doesn't get to go out, or people just, even people that are younger people with kids that don't get to go out anymore. This is a night for them, too. So two completely different approaches between weddings and public events. And then private parties, the only thing I can say about corporate events or private parties is it really just kind of all depends on the company. I mean, you know, we played a Christmas party or two for companies that literally were just there to get their end of the year awards and have a dinner, and you know, the band plays, and we're almost just background music, you know. And then we played other corporate events where, you know, maybe an oil company or something, there's a bunch of young folks, and that ends up playing out like a street dance. So you never know with the corporate event.
Yeah, because for what it's worth, I just came back from a wedding in Pennsylvania, and from what I've noticed, like the late part of it in North Dakota, it's either you're on the dance floor, you're at the table, or you're in the bar line. And in PA, usually we have like a couple of places, like a cigar station, or like my buddies had like adult Jenga and like whole setup. Yeah. So it's a little more spread out. It's not quite as centralized, but everybody can find a way to have a fun time. Do you find it's not even like a bad thing per se? I don't think you would say it is either. Do your set lists ever get affected by, like, if it's a private more event, when somebody gives that kind of input for planning? Because I imagine like a wedding DJ versus a wedding band. Does that ever happen?
Oh, as far as I'm sorry, ask that again. I'm not sure I got you on that.
Yeah, so say like if you were going into a company party or like a wedding, I'm thinking about like when somebody books like a wedding DJ, they oftentimes give them a good bit of input on what kind of music they like. Does that happen with bands as well?
You know, every once in a while. I mean, I'd say probably 1 out of every 10 weddings. And I think because most people, I think, who have hired Slamabama have seen Slamabama, so they kind of know what it's all about. But I've had brides email me and go, "I looked on your website. May I make your set list out?" And you know, we respectfully decline that. And the reason we say no is because that's, you know how I said earlier, you never play for yourself, and that applies to the bride and groom too. Don't forget, yes, it is your wedding, but it's your friends and your family's party. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is your party too, but you're throwing a party for them. And Slamabama, you know, myself or Rosanna or the guys, we do these things all the time. And if I played the set list that you're going to give me, I don't think it's going to work. You know, and we want to make sure it works for you. And so we want to make sure at your wedding, you know, that the slow song comes every 8 or 10 songs, or, you know, we start off with this and we end up, you know, because it'll start off like a family affair and it will end like a drunken sailor party. So, and you have to, you know, people don't really sometimes think about that there really is, there's a process for doing a private event. There's a process for doing a wedding. Plus, if we came out at the beginning and we were going just, you know, crazy and balls out from the first song, I guarantee you your grandmother, your mom, or your dad's going to be there, and they're going to come and tell us to turn down, and then things are going to get weird. So, you know.
They get that once you bring that up, because they're not, like, booking bands every day.
Exactly, and I've never had anyone argue with me about that, you know, but there are actually provisions in the band's contracts from Bitzer Agency, the agency we work with, that have come over time, and it's not just us, it's all bands that have done these things, and so you have to even put these things in your contract, you know. Don't worry about it. Don't, you know, you can certainly request songs off of the band's playlist, but the band will set the set list up because the band has that experience. So, and it's not just us, it's kind of all bands.
Anybody can look up the Slamabama website and see like the Rolodex or experience, what have you, for you guys going performing for sports teams, corporate clients. Your cough is coming from this casino, colleges, music fests, nightclubs, what have you. Among all the different venues and times that you guys have performed, any show memories like really stick out, like the one year that we did this show here?
You know what? And I'm not pandering because I'm talking to someone in Minot, but
we got Minot questions coming up. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of North Dakota State Fair memories, and some are positive, some are crazy, some are. There's that show. You know, we did that show for 10 years, and we finally had decided not to do it anymore. Not because we didn't love it. It got to be where we had turned down so many other events over the course of 10 years that we were missing, country festivals or street dances or stuff, and they were like, you'll never ever play our event if you're doing that fair. And then, we were never asked to stop or anything like that. We just decided it was a change that we need to do. But that fair has probably been more of a memory maker for us than just about everything, just because we played something for 10 years. There's one Rosanna lost a wedding ring in the porta potty at one of those one time. That we've had people crawl from underneath our stage after the show was over and we were packing up, and they had crawling out from under the stage, adjusting their clothing. So we knew at that point that we'd basically been the soundtrack for their memorable evening, as they were underneath us doing whatever it is they were doing. And we've seen people get arrested for, having to go to the bathroom so bad, but there wasn't enough porta potties, so they just had to relieve themselves right there by the stage. I mean, it's like that place there's so much going on there. And, I remember when we first started playing in that fair, that I don't know how many years you've gone to the Flickertail shows, right? Have you been to the
Yeah,
to the fair?
I've been here for 5 years.
Okay, well, we started it, now 12 years ago. When we first started playing that event, we were, where the stage is now, basically. It was to the right, facing the big bay door of the Flickertail when we first started playing there. And there was, it was always a big crowd. Nothing like what had happened over the course of 10 years. The event became, when Slamabama played North Dakota State Fair, it did become one of these, things that, things to do every summer. And the crowd got bigger and bigger, and then the stage got further and further back when they moved it, and then they expanded, and we'd still be one in, one out at points. And it just got so crazy that, you can't help but just remember that show year after year as being something that, just brought more memories than probably any other show we'd done over the course of our career.
How did that fair get on your radar at the very beginning?
We were booking through an agency in Wisconsin at the time, and Gary Bitzer, who is the owner of our agency now, who we've been with for years, he had reached out to see if they could find a band to do it. He was friends with the agent we were working with at the time, and I think he had heard some good things about Slamabama and asked if we might want to do it. And we had just started, actually. I mean, we had just been going for maybe a year and a half or so, and we got picked up by it. And it was actually one of the first times we had ever traveled a good distance to do a show, because we were still living in Illinois at the time. And it just organically happened. We went out there, did the show. There was a guy named Chris Benno who was the guy who was booking the show at the time, and for the fair. And we just all had this mutual love fest after the first time we played. First time we ever played it, we played under the old grandstand, in that little, it was like a garage under there. And then they told us, they were like, hey, we're going to build a new grandstand. It's going to be like this, multi-million-dollar project. When you guys come back, do you guys want to do the Flickertail, or you want to play this beautiful new grandstand thing? And we were like, oh, so we could go to the Flickertail, because I know they got big crowds over there, or we can do this big, huge, new, beautiful grandstand thing. So we chose the grandstand because we didn't know any better. And then we came back to grandstand the next year. Is obviously that little bar underneath there now, and it's so loud and it's so hard for full bands. They actually don't even do full bands in there anymore. They just do acoustic acts in there. But they put us in there that first time, and it was just.
I think you're talking about they call it the Carousel Pub.
Yes, it was a nightmare, because you put a full band in there. It was a nightmare. I mean, people were coming in just to be there and support us, and it was like I wouldn't. Honestly, if I was a crowd member, I wouldn't have stayed in there for 15 minutes. It was so loud. And so we talked to Chris after that, and we were like, we would like to go to the Flickertail if you have us back. Let's do the Flickertail next time. And so he had us back for the Flickertail our third year, and then it was just 7 years of just mayhem over there.
You can let other people have the fun underneath your stage compared to you guys playing underneath those seats and having it be way too loud.
Oh yeah, believe me, we were not getting the satisfaction that the two people underneath our stage were getting. Although we were in essence being screwed at the same time. We didn't have the same fun. But,
oh man!
Yeah.
So another spot that you guys will be regular at here is the Original Bar and Nightclub. Obviously, they had that tear down in the brand new concert venue that they just put up. Give me, from your perspective, performing there, what's like the comparison you have between looking back fondly on the old building with the low ceiling versus what it is now, a way bigger and taller area?
It's really cool. We love Adam and Ben and all those people. It's been such an amazing little ride since we decided to start playing there. We had been playing at another venue relatively close, and so we finally decided to come to the old O. And I just remember walking in there the first time, and it just felt right. Like we were like, oh, we love this place, and we love the people. And we did our first couple of shows, and we would finish shows there, and I remember Adam would come up, and he'd be like, look what you did, and he'd point at the ceiling, and the ceiling would just be sweating. Like there'd be water just running down the walls and dripping off the ceiling. And he's like, we can always tell when there's a great night, if this place is sweating, because we don't see that every night. And that would make us, be really excited. So there was a love for that room that we really had, even though we had only played there a couple of years, a few years, we felt like it was home. And then so he built a new place, and as it was being built, he was walking us through it every time we come play the old room, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. So we came back and did the new one. First time we did it, we were just blown away with we were happy that at least for the first time or two that we played there, that people were able to get in there a little easier, and not have to stand out in the freezing cold, for the smaller venue. But then, do we still get lines at the door? And he still has to kind of cut it off and go one in, one out when we play there, it's a real badge of honor for us, to be able to do that. But it's so nice actually having the bigger venue, and I love looking up at the balcony and seeing people sitting up there drinking and singing along. But the cool thing is about the way he set the place up is that you have that balcony and you have that bar, over to the left of the stage, if we're looking off the stage, and then you have the back balcony, and those people are still engaged and are having a good time. But that little area down in front, where everybody kind of moshes up at the front of the stage, that's still like an intimate place for us. So the place may be twice as big, but it still feels the same intimacy because you still see the same faces and the same people down there that are just having the same good time that they had in the old building. And even though it's a new, industrial feeling place, which is really cool, as opposed to the old place, which was all wood and, kind of like, I don't know. It's two different feelings, but they're both equally great. We've had just epic shows at the new place, and we're also very fortunate to be the band that they call on to do, big nights too, like big event nights. So.
Well, maybe you could look back fondly about it looked like a frat basement a little bit, it was pretty tough.
It did, and actually when I paused for a second, I was going to say that, but I didn't want it to mean, what Adam had there, because it was a great fight. I didn't want to make it sound like it was, it was like a basement.
About it, man.
Yeah, it's just that intimacy,
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have a couple events that I'll mention here coming up at the Original, but I'll give you the credit because, I can say it. I've been here long enough where it was even fun seeing you guys down at Roosters. But anyway, I'll
yeah, that's where we're playing.
There we go. I'll move it along past that in today's day and age here. But I'll give you an open-ended question here. How would you describe your North Dakota fans and audiences that you guys have here when you come up?
You know what? Let's put it this way. I can probably describe it best by saying that we live here now, and we chose to live in. Well, Rosanna and I we're on the Minnesota side of the line. We live in Moorhead, and the guys are over in Fargo. But it wasn't a choice solely based upon where we were working, and I say that because we had, our year. If you subtract COVID from the situation, 2020 was literally by far the biggest year Slamabama had ever had as far as what was developing. And then, of course, COVID took that away. But we basically, we play between Chicago and Denver all year. That's kind of our swath of America that we go. And it is very convenient that North Dakota is kind of like dead in the middle of that area. But we did it for years, still going back home. And by home, I mean Alabama for us, San Francisco for the drummer, for Alec, and Illinois for for Dennis. And we started thinking, what if we found a place to live up in the upper Midwest? And, we considered going back to Illinois. We considered some other things. And honestly, and this is, again, I'm not pandering. I don't like to pander, but it seems like I got a lot of love for a lot that goes on up here because I do. And we absolutely fell in love with the people of this part of the country. They're the most real, and the most, and not only that, but like there's such an appreciation for live music here that you don't even see anywhere. I mean, I don't care. Where you go, this part of the country loves live music. It's like it's such a unique thing. We did a show in Valley City, North Dakota, with a comedy duo that was really big back in the day on CMT. They're called Williams and Ree.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a they kind of do shows for an older group now. We had been hired to do a show with them in Valley City because we also do a set of like classic country. So we were doing like Loretta Lynn and Buck Owens and stuff like that. We actually do that sometimes just to get that out of our system. And they had hired us over at this place. It was like the Eagles or something in Valley City, and we did a show with Williams and Ree, and they were really super nice. And they asked us if we'd like to come have dinner with them, and we were like, yeah. And they were like, yeah, come on back, let's have dinner together. So we sat down with the two of them and had this great, had this great dinner and this great talk together. And one of the gentlemen looked at me and he goes, the Williams guy, I'm sorry, I don't remember their first names. I just know them by their last names. It's the deal. I was like Brooks and Dunn. Right. But he goes, you guys play up in this area a lot. We were like, yeah, we probably do 80% of our year, up between the Dakotas and Minnesota. And he was like, this is the last bastion of live entertainment in the country. Like that not only has it, finds value in it, pays for it, appreciates it. I mean, it's something that's, it's a rare thing to find a chance to play and still make a living doing that, because we're fortunate enough to do this for a living. And I think that I know if we were in Alabama, it wouldn't be that way. And I know if we were in Illinois, it wouldn't be that way, because I've been in both places. And I've always had to, supplement my band work, no matter how good it got. But up here, there's just a dyed-in-the-wool appreciation for live music, and the people are just fantastic. We've made more friends and fans here than we ever would have dreamed.
All right, that's awesome, man. So basically, just the consistency of you guys being a freaking hit around here, and I guess maybe like going back to each of your hometowns, does that kind of constitute like what your footprint is, I guess, or anything like with your agency? Am I missing anything that kind of affects it, or is that basically that's why we plays here?
We will, we travel to play, and we do things, that are unique, that on occasion, like someone that may want to hire us. We do a 10-night run in Florida every year or every other year, depending on how things are going. But we do a 10-night run down there. We still do shows back home in Alabama on occasion, but we do everything through our agency, and either we bring it to them or they bring it to us. And we've found a real systematic way of doing this, where it's kind of turnkey now. We just kind of do our shows, we learn our music, we work with our agency, and they make things happen for us, and we're very blessed right now to have something that's I don't want to say it's on cruise control, because we're still having to do the work, and still having to keep it going, but it's just, we've been very fortunate and very blessed now that one show begets the next. And you do a wedding and 3 more weddings come out of it. You do a big fair and all these club dates or other fairs or festivals come out of it. And it's just, this is what we all dreamt that Slamabama would one day be, is like kind of a revenue and show generating machine that would just kind of bring stuff to us. And that's been something that's been it's been a big blessing for us.
I feel like you guys do a great job when it comes to involving the crowd, and they can tell that you guys care about them coming out, and you love the fans and all that stuff. So I sort of have a 2-part question regarding that. First,
sure.
How do you fit in when somebody like steps up and say like, hey, I request this song, and how do you kind of slot it into the rotation there close enough where they're like, where the hell's my song after not too long, because some people could be impatient about that. And secondly,
absolutely.
And secondly, can you talk about? I've seen. How do you guys kind of regulate maybe when people like to get wild with you? I remember I've seen like birthday girls get to dance on the amps and stuff like that. How do you kind of keep that having fun, but also keeping things in check maybe as much as you can?
For your first question, like generally, if somebody just throws a note on stage with a request, you can kind of. I've got a pretty good nonverbal communication with those people on whether or not it's going to be something we can do. And if it's in the first set, I'll generally tell them let's talk on the break about that. If someone comes up to me on a break, and first question I always get is, do you guys take requests? And my kind of format answer at this point is, well, if it's something we do and if it can work, and so. If it's a request that's obviously something we don't do, then we're not going to do it. If they're going to ask for they're going to ask for some '60s song, in the middle of the second set at the O, when we know that set's going to be super current stuff or '90s rock or pop or like I said earlier, Pitbull or Lizzo or something. I'm probably not going to throw CCR in the middle of that.
They still ask. They don't kind of read the room,
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really honest with the person about it. I will tell them, and I think they get more respect. They feel more respected by that than if I told them, we'll see if we can work it out. So I'm really honest with people, and I'll be like, you know what, we do that song, but I got to be honest with you, this next set, I can't even figure out where it's going to be or where it's going to work in the set. And they usually go, no, that's cool, man, I understand. We're having a great show. We love you guys. And then I can say, you know what, just that you asked us for it, man, that's a real honor to us that you would want us to hear a song that you like. So I think we've kind of found, or at least I found a way to kind of communicate back to people if maybe the request isn't the best idea at that point. And then I'll be really honest if it's not something we do. And then what was your second question? I'm so sorry.
Just about how do you kind of balance I think you guys are really open to having your fans up close and personal, like the birthday girls dancing on the amps or the drunk guys that really high five you time and time again. How's that regulated where it's fun and awesome versus people don't go over the edge?
Well, I can tell you this, it is a hard and fast rule with us that people do not get on the stage. And now, that will be bent on occasion if we're at a place like the O that actually goes out of their way to have stage security.
Right.
So if it's, we will do things at the O we don't do anywhere else in the country because maybe those other venues don't have stage security, and we're not going to sit there and have to be our own security and fight people off the stage. So generally it's no, we're up here and, I had a guy come up to me a couple weeks ago and he asked if he could get on stage and sing a song, and it was at a wedding, and I told him, I said, man, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We're coming into the last set. It's going to be a party. I don't want to mess in. And, he got a little belligerent about it. And finally I said, hey, man, what's the name of your band? And that's always kind of a way to kind of do that. And you could see the freeze up in his eyes at that point. I'm like, oh, you're not in a band? He's like, no. I said, well, then, man, you got to at least be in a band. You got to at least be somebody who's kind of, earned the respect to be able to come and stand on our stage and disrupt our show so you can sing your song. It's so, and usually I wouldn't be that way with somebody, but if they start getting belligerent with me, then there has to be a point where we have to go, well, you know what? We're paid to do this. We're here for this bride or this groom or these people or whoever it is that hired us, and they didn't hire us to bring you up here, and, and neither do all these people. Want to see that.
To lie, too. My band's like the Smashing Pumpkins or whatever.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, you can even see, because they're usually so sideswiped by the question that, and they're probably a little drunk. So, they're not going to come out and go and just name some band off the top of their head, that they've made up on the fly. You can see it in their eyes immediately. And, of course, 95% of these people are not in a band. So you got a pretty good chance they're not going to come up with anything. But we, if there is stage security, like at a place like the O, then we're actually pretty laxed on that hard and fast rule. But we're just, it's one of those things, and I don't mind saying this because it's a very small percentage of the public that really honestly thinks that they're entitled to that moment, and it's I think that I don't feel bad saying it because most people are not that entitled. And so most people would not just make their way onto your stage with it. And then that's generally the way it is. If not, people don't look at me and go, hey, can I come up there? Usually they're like Spider-Man, and all of a sudden they're like crawling up the front of the stage, and it's like, what are you doing? This is not, and the thing is, you can tell too, the fans are completely on your side. The fans do not want this person on the stage. They don't know who they are, and they're disrupting the show. So, yeah.
So
go ahead.
Okay, so you mentioned a good time to discuss, like, if you have requests or you're even good enough to talk to fans during your breaks for a little bit. You need your break, I get that. But then when you're coming out of it, you guys like to bring the energy up with this intro of The Office featuring your band members. How did you come up with that idea?
It's just, I don't know. It is funny. It was kind of before The Office kind of popped again, because we've been doing this little Office thing for a few years. And, in the last couple of years, it's funny, knowing my teenage kids were, when they were like 15, 14 years old, and they were like, oh, do you watch The Office? And yeah, I watch The Office. So now it's kind of cool to see that it's become a big deal, because when we first did it, The Office actually had not really become a huge deal yet, so we were kind of a little ahead on the curve on that. But I don't know. I think I was sitting there one day, and I was like, what would be fun? Let's do something to kind of like start the second set almost like we're starting a show, like a TV show. And we have the video. We have the opportunity to use video with the show, and that's kind of cool. So why not, black the lights out and start it off like that? Everybody gets their name and face up there. You get to kind of like, I don't know if you know the movie That Thing You Do, but I'm a huge fan of that movie. And when they finally went on the big TV show at the end of the movie, when the band, the Wonders, finally got their chance to play for, a national audience, the producers made this moment. They were like, okay, get close-ups of all the guys and let's put their names up on the screen so the crowd gets to know them, for the first time. And so that little thing rings in my head. It's like kind of cool seeing Rosanna up there and seeing her name, and, Alec up there and his name, and Denny up there and his name, and me. And I was like, we kind of consider the stage, that's our office, so why not use that theme song and do a shot-for-shot remake of the beginning of that show?
What did you and Rosanna do for your wedding entertainment, considering you're the band that usually plays people's weddings?
Rosanna and I had a very elaborate wedding at the courthouse. Nice. because we had both been married before.
Okay.
So when we got married, we honestly decided, we were like, actually it was me, my mom, my dad, and Dennis. Dennis was stood up there with us, and it was us and the Justice of the Peace in Birmingham, Alabama, who actually, I believe, happened to be a preacher as well, because I think there's a blur in Alabama between church and state. But but it was we had a but what we did, you were asking about the entertainment value. What we did was that night we scheduled a show in Birmingham, and because we got married in the afternoon. It was just, we were like, you know what, we're in love with each other. We're going to be together for the rest of our life. We have nothing to prove to each other or anyone else. We just want to get married. And like I said, both of us had had big, elaborate weddings in our past, and we knew that our relationship wasn't about that. It was just about, making that bond between the two of us and moving forward. So we did, and that's been 11 years ago. And that night we scheduled a show at a big venue down in Birmingham, and we brought a friend of ours who was an ordained minister on stage, and he did a mock wedding of she and I on stage there, and then Slamabama did a show. So it was fun.
How much did they freak out when they were like, oh my God, you're serious. Congratulations, newlyweds.
Yeah. It was, it was that night. I think we did kind of build the show as Jay and Rosanna are getting married, but no one knew that we had actually been married like 3 hours before.
That's fantastic. So
yeah.
What is something that fans may not know about from the outside when it comes to just being in a band and doing what you guys do?
Probably the one thing that I think, for some reason, I think there's two things. One is the job doesn't start when the music does. The job's been going all day long. Probably we've been driving, and there's been a setup and a sound check. And not that people don't know that, but I think sometimes they don't think about that. That actually it's and also that when it comes to the job end of things, that we're doing something all week with Slamabama. We're doing something on Mondays and Tuesdays, it may be meetings between me and the agency. It may be something like I'm doing with you right now. I mean, it's a full-time job for us. And I think the other thing is that mostly I think people think that, when they're like, oh, it's the band, let's hang out with the band, or the band's, the band's in the hotel room. With us, it's kind of a different story. We put so much energy into the show. We don't do a lot of like post partying or anything like that, or like after parties. I mean, we do sometimes. I mean, it is what it is, depending on the venue. But we've always handled Slamabama like a business from the beginning. We own the trademark of the word. We have a business. We have a corporation. It's all done differently with Slamabama because it was like we wanted, both Rosanna and I's dream, and I know the other guys I found out over the years, of course. Our dream was just to make a living making music, and we knew that if we were going to do that, it wasn't going to be like a beer swilling, consistent, 24-hour party. And so, like, even though we have more fun, and it's not like we're putting on that we're having fun. I mean, we work so hard at Slamabama that 3 to 4 hours a night that we're doing show is literally the most fun that we ever dreamed we could have. So, yeah, we just put all our focus on that. And I think that's something that a lot of people, I think that, it's just an eternal, sleep late every day, drink at night, party kind of thing. And for us, it's really not. I mean, I'm usually up at 7 a.m. every morning getting started on something.
It's not like The Dirt or anything?
What's that?
It's not like The Dirt with Mick Mars and Motley Crue?
Oh, no, not like The Dirt at all. Not in the least. No. And I will say, it's not that it wasn't when I was younger and I was in my 20s. It's not like that wasn't a little closer. It was, it wasn't The Dirt. It was probably The Dust in comparison. But still, it was way more fun back then. But I also wasn't, I wasn't thinking about it the way I think about it now. And I think that's another thing that Rosanna and I have always said is I think that one reason we've had good, solid success with Slamabama is because we do know that. That we do know that it's something that, we can put all of our focus into, have a lot of fun with it, but still, remember the serious side of things too, and just treat it like a job.
And also, I mean, you get the bonus. I mean, like, I had to move away for the work that I do along with a bunch of my coworkers and stuff. And you guys have this traveling occupation where sometimes folks have to be away from their families. And I mean, you and Rosanna, obviously, I mean, that you have to feel fortunate where it's worked out like this in that respect.
Very much so. I think we both said in the past that if only one of us did this, it would be very, very hard on our marriage. And it's funny. Before we moved 3 years ago, we moved here. We moved to Moorhead. We were doing it all in hotels and only going home. Like, we would go 6 weeks to 8 weeks on the road, then go home for a week. 6 weeks to 8 weeks on the road, go home for a week. So we joked about it. We were like, man, in the first 7 years of our marriage and stuff, we've been married 25 years already because we've been living in one room together 6 nights, 7 nights a week for 6 weeks at a time. So, but by the same token, that just made us better, as a couple, and made us stronger. I think if she had been home and I had been on the road, or vice versa, I don't know how some people do it. I'll be honest with you. Mm-hmm.
So when somebody comes out and sees Slamabama, there's a lot of songs that people know, but at the same time, you guys come out with your own original music as well. What makes you passionate enough to do that in addition to the covers? And maybe what are some tips that you'd have for bands that are just starting out and they want to do that original track? Because you guys have been doing this for like a decade or more now.
Yeah, we just drop tracks now. It's funny. We used to do full albums. We did 3 albums, and a couple of them are off iTunes now because I feel like they actually kind of dated out. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the way we had produced them or whatever. We don't, because we're not a national act that is building this legacy of original music. Like, we can look back at our first stuff and go, I don't think we want that representing us today. That's not who we are today. So we can just yank it off iTunes. But what we do now as an original band is just sometimes we just, like I said earlier, sometimes you have to get certain things out of your system. And Rosanna and I love to write. I moved to Nashville actually to be a writer, and then got a little swept up in the whole artist scene. But all I want to do is write. And we put songs out now because we want to on occasion. So we had a song called The Echoes that we put out during COVID, and when we were like locked down between March and June or whatever. And we did it just because we wanted to. And that's kind of cool, you know, for us, because we write a lot of stuff that we haven't recorded. And I think now, because of the way that music is, you know, a lot of people don't buy albums anymore. They just buy tracks. So, we've kind of just taken that approach where it's like, hey, you want to do another track? Let's put another track up. And so we kind of started doing that with songs like Water Tower or The Echoes. But we are right now working on a massive, sprawling project in the studio right now, which is probably going to be 2021 before we finish it. And I'm not going to go any details on it, but it's pretty big, and it's very self-indulgent of us, but it's going to be really cool. I think people are going to really like it. It's a different thing than we've ever done before. And then as far as advice for younger musicians, I have the first words that ever comes out of my mouth when somebody comes up, because I have a lot of people come up to me. I had a kid just a couple months ago with a windbreak come up and go, man, I've been seeing your shows. What do I do? How do I do this? And it was more of a point of view, I think, of just being a working musician. And my answer to him was just never get afraid to hear no, just to hear people say no to you, because Slamabama, myself, Rosanna, every member of this band has heard no more than we've ever heard yes as a musician. And the yeses are they're great, but the no's are what gives you a thicker skin, and you start not worrying about when people say no. You know, and we're very fortunate. We don't hear no as much anymore, and that's great. But like back when I was first coming up as a musician, and no's are sometimes disguised as, maybe you're not the right guy at the right time, but ultimately it's a no. And I think that you just, as a musician, you will hear so many more no's than you will hear yeses over the course of your career. And that goes for yourself as an original musician or as anything else. And the only other advice I would give anybody that was really going after an original career is you're living in a wonderful time right now, because studios can be in living rooms or bedrooms. And the only thing stopping you from putting out original music is you. If you can write it, you can record it, you can produce it, and you can put it on iTunes all yourself. So don't ever be afraid to do that. And if your stuff's great and somebody hears it, then your life can be wonderful. If it's not fantastic, or you don't have the pipeline to get that music to somebody who can do something with it, then at least you got it out of your system and you did something creative. So that's my big deal.
Yeah, and you said you got this the self-indulgent project coming up here real soon. I was going to wrap this with, where do you see Slamabama going in the future? And also, we've given fans a lot of an idea of what you guys are like, but when it comes to your dates here coming up at the original, we got Halloween with Slamabama and then New Year's as well. So we know all about the sound at this point. Do you guys have your costumes picked out? Is anybody going to be dressed up as Baby New Year? What's the plan?
It would be very hard for Rosanna and I to beat the costume I think we did last year. We've done a lot. Slamabama takes Halloween really, really seriously every year. And this year's a little weird because of the COVID thing. We don't even know at this point, are we going to be at 50% capacity? Are we going all out? What's going to happen? We have picked out our costumes this year. We are definitely dressing up in costumes because we always do. I don't want to tell you what they are. We have told a couple people, and we get a massive laugh out of it every time we say what we're going to be. So I can tell you it will be very funny. It is going to be a very funny costume. Last year we were Ricky Bobby and his wife, and it was honestly the best costume we've ever done as a couple since we've been together. It looked really good. But every year we do something either as a group or individually, and I think I'm kind of always the guy that takes it maybe a little more seriously, but everybody in the band takes it seriously. We always dress up, for Halloween. So we will definitely do that, and there will be new music at Halloween just because we always try to keep things fresh and change things up. And then, of course, New Year's, we've done New Year's at Theo now. I think this will be the fourth year. I know it's either third or fourth, and that's just a guaranteed good time. So it'll be fun.
It's awesome, and you don't have to say if I'm right or wrong, but I'm going to tell you my guess is that you guys are going to be Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin.
I'm going to tell you we are not.
All right, well, It's a pretty good guess on my part. But
Yes,
then,
you know what?
I'm thinking about being his campaign manager because I always try to find people that look exactly alike. If you look up a picture of me from Camo T and Josh Dial, it's a spitting image. And also last year I was Peter Griffin, and it was so easy to put that costume together.
Nice. You know what? Believe me, I would say probably, I don't know, 6 months ago when Tiger King came out, I think Rosanna and I immediately said that's what we were going to do. And then all of a sudden, I think we got a little Tiger Kinged out and we decided that we weren't. But I will tell you that you were correct. There was a moment in time where that's exactly who we would have been. But we did change it up a little bit.
That's awesome. Well, Jay, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your time, and I know a lot of people will be looking forward to hearing your perspective as one of the popular bands that rolls through Minot all the time.
Awesome.
Thanks for the time. We'll see you Halloween and New Year's, buddy.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me.
That's Jay Juliano of Slamabama.